Can you imagine spending months in a conflict, deploying military forces, risking escalation, warning the entire world about security threat, and then suddenly facing accusations that you are preparing to hand billions of dollars to the very country you were fighting? Well, it sounds unbelievable, right? Ladies and gentlemen, yet that is exactly the controversy that is dominating international headlines today. Reports began circulating that a massive reconstruction package, it could be linked to the emerging US-Iran agreement. You know what is the number that is being discussed? $300 billion. Let that sink in. 300 billions. That's what we are talking about. Not millions, billions. Well, that's a huge amount. A figure large enough to rebuild cities, large enough to transform economies, large enough to trigger outrage across political circles here. Well, in the meantime, almost immediately, social media exploded. Critics demanded answers, supporters demanded clarification. Analysts began debating whether such a move it could be politically possible or not. And then came Mr. Trump's response here. That's right, US President, his answer, it was short, it was direct, and it was typical Trump style, unmistakable. Fake news. Yes, 2 words, fake news. That's typical Trump style. Mr. Trump dismissed reports that America would be handing over hundreds of billions of dollars. Instead, he focused on what he considers the real success of the agreement. Iran's commitment not to pursue nuclear weapon. But here's where things get more and more interesting, because even if the reports are inaccurate, the reaction tells us something very, very important, right? Trust remains incredibly fragile, and specifically during the wartime. Think about it. The mere suggestion that America might financially support Iran, it was enough to spark a global controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's know the reason behind it. Why? Why is this such a sensitive issue? Because years of hostility, it cannot disappear overnight. Well, for decades, Washington and Tehran have viewed each other with a lot of suspicion, sanction, threat, military confrontation, proxy conflict. Now, all of that history, it still exists. And that history shapes how people, they interpret every single headline. Supporters of diplomacy, they argue that peace requires compromise. Critics argue that compromise, it can sometimes look like weakness. And that particular debate, it is now becoming one of the biggest political battles surrounding this particular agreement. In the meantime, leaders are emphasizing another political benefit here: the reopening of Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important energy route, basically a waterway through which a lot of amount of oil move every single day. If stability returns there, global energy market, it could benefit. Oil prices could stabilize. In fact, economic uncertainty, it could decrease, and countries around the globe, including India, could feel the effects here. But even as diplomats celebrate progress, not everyone appears convinced here, because while official statement speaks about peace, some Iranian leaders, they are maybe sending a very different message that the world should pay attention to.